Academy. Today we'll be looking at the biology as the study of life and living organisms. So we're going to start with the ordinary meaning of biology, okay? So we're going to look at the first meaning of biology. What is biology, okay? So we're going to start from there. Before we talk about the characteristics of living things, let's quickly look at what biology is. What biology is, right? So we say biology is the study of life. Say biology is the study of life. Biology is the study of life and living things. Anything that has life, when you're studying it and you're studying the things that have that are living, then you're doing biology. Okay, you remember we say chemistry is the study of matter. We say chemistry is the study of matter. Physics is the study of matter and energy, or the study of measurement. So biology is the study of life. So when you're studying life or living things, then you are doing biology. So study of life. When you're studying life or you're studying living things, then you're doing biology. It's a science that deals with the study. So you can start it like this by saying biology is a science that deals with the study of life and living things. The study of life and living things. So the things that have life. Okay, when you're studying the things that have life, then you're doing biology. When you're studying things that do not have life, you're probably either doing chemistry or you're doing physics. Okay, so when you specifically study things that have life, or you're studying living things, not just life and living things. So be comprehensive enough, you say life and living things. The study of life and the study of all living things. Okay, probably is the same thing, right? It's same thing, because living things are those things that have life, right? Study of life and living things. That's what biology is. So having said this, the science that deals with the study of life and the study of all living things is biology. So since we have emphasized on life and living things, how do you differentiate between things that have life and things that doesn't have life? So what is the criteria for saying this thing has life or this thing doesn't have a life? So on that note, that brings us to the characteristics of living things. What are the things that help us to denote what has life and what doesn't have life? So before we go on to looking at the characteristics of living things, let's listen to this tutorial on how the characteristics of living things has been presented.
This video is on the topic of the characteristics of living organisms. Let's start by naming the 7 characteristics of living organisms. They are movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. You may have known these as Mrs. Gren or Mrs. Nerg when you were starting out your biology learning. You do need to know a definition of each of these words, and it's a good idea to have some examples too. Let's go through them now. The first one we'll look at is movement. The definition for movement is an action by an organism or part of an organism causes a change of position or place. Remember that all living organisms move, including plants, bacteria, and fungi. Some examples of movement include animals walking or running, or body parts moving like a tail wagging, or as you can see here, a hand waving. Some plant examples are a leaf positioning itself towards sunlight, or roots moving toward a water source. Do remember that plants can move too, as these are often overlooked. Next we have respiration. This is defined as the chemical reactions that break down nutrient molecules in living cells to release energy for metabolism. There are 2 types of respiration: aerobic respiration, which takes place in the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic respiration, which does not require oxygen. And there are 2 types of anaerobic respiration. One takes place in animals and the other in yeast and plant cells. You do need to know about all these types of respiration as part of your course. Sensitivity is an organism's ability to detect or sense stimuli from their internal or external environment and then to make an appropriate response. An example of this may be an increase in temperature, which is the stimulus, and the human skin, which then may start to sweat in response. Other stimuli include pH, light, humidity, oxygen and carbon dioxide concentrations. And of course, plants are sensitive to stimuli too. Don't get confused with the word sensitivity in the context of biology. We're not talking about emotional sensitivity here. Growth is a permanent increase in an organism's size and their dry mass. This occurs because of an increase in the number of cells, or the cell mass, or sometimes both. All organisms grow. Even the largest of trees started life as a small seed, and you started life as just one cell. Reproduction includes a set of processes that lead to more of the same species of organism. This can either be through sexual or asexual reproduction, and some species can do both. Sexual reproduction includes both male and female parent organisms, and the offspring will contain variation based on these two parents and their DNA. In contrast, asexual reproduction requires only one parent, and the offspring are all genetically identical to each other and this parent. This is common in the plant world and is how plant cuttings are made. Next, we have excretion. This is the various processes that lead to the removal of toxic materials, waste products from metabolism, and substances that are in excess from the organism. In this example, carbon dioxide is a waste gas and would be excreted from the organism. Other substances excreted include urea and water in urine. Excretion should not be confused with egestion, which is the passing out of undigested food as feces through the anus. Finally, we have nutrition. This is the processes that lead to organisms taking in materials required for energy release, growth, and their development. Plants require light, carbon dioxide, water and ions, and animals need organic compounds, ions and water from many processes and organs within their bodies, such as calcium for strong teeth and bones, and vitamin A for healthy eyes. Some organisms acquire their nutrients by eating, such as humans, and other species take in their nutrients via processes such as diffusion and osmosis. In summary, there are 7 life processes: movement, respiration, sensitivity, growth, reproduction, excretion, and nutrition. You do not need to remember these in this specific order, but the acronym Mrs. Gran can really help ensure you don't miss one out. Don't forget to check out all our other fantastic revision resources here at Save My Exams.
Okay, so we've gone through the 7 characteristics of living things. So we said, how did we get here? We said biology is the study of life and living things. So in order to differentiate between living and non-living things, we propose 7 characteristics, like 7 properties a living thing has that a non-living thing do not have. These characteristics are things that are only familiar or common to living things. The non-living things do not have these characteristics or these properties. So that's what we have looked at, and we've identified them as Ms. Gran. Okay, in a very simpler way, we've identified them as Mrs. Gran. Mrs. This is a mnemonics. This is a mnemonic. Mnemonics is just the short form of remembering things. So we call this Ms. Gran. But ordinarily I also add one. After this 7, I have my one that makes it Ms. Gran. Okay. I can also arrange them as Mr. Ninja. Okay, I can also arrange these things as Mr. Ninja, not just Ms. Gran. Okay, Mr. Ninja or Ms. Gran. But the popular one for Cambridge is Miss Gran. So let's stick with Ms. Gran. Okay, so we said that this Ms. Gran is a mnemonics, the ways of remembering the characteristics of living things. The particular characteristics that living things do have, that non-living things do not have. That living things do have, that non-living things do not have. The first one is movement. So the first characteristic of living things is what? Movement. Now, movement is an action by an organism or part of an organism, causing a change of position, change of speed, change of place, and so on and so forth. Okay? So movement is what you do that will change where you are to another place. The action that you carry out in order to move away from where you are to another place, to be in another location, okay, to cause a change of position or a change of place. That's the first one, movement. Is that okay? So movement is an action that an organism carry out in plants. The movement is not from one place to another. In plant, it can show growth movement. See the plant moving towards the sunlight. That's movement. You see the plant growing towards the direction of the sun. okay, what you call phototropism. When you start studying phototropism, the shoot of the plant, the parts of the plant that's above the ground, start growing towards the sunlight. Okay, so that's movement. You see the roots of the plant growing towards the water in the ground, which is gravitropism, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's movement. So not only why animals or human beings move from one place to another in search of food, in search of new homes, in search of migration. You hear migration. In search of education, you go to school in another place. You leave your house, you go to school. All these are movement. Okay, you wave people. You move it past a place. You wave people. You shake your hands. All these are movement. Okay. So movement is anything that causes a change of position or change of location or change of place. Okay, so that's called movement in a living organism. Which is this first one, number one, movement, M. Okay, number two is respiration, but here it's treated as reproduction. You can take anyone first, whether respiration first or reproduction first. It doesn't matter. Okay, in this case, we say reproduction. Reproduction is a process that makes more of the same kinds or species of organisms. The process whereby organisms make their younger ones alive. They makes offsprings, makes their younger ones. There are two processes of reproduction. We have the sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. There are two processes that is being used in reproduction. We have the sexual reproduction, and this one evolved two organisms. And then we have the asexual reproduction, which is like cloning. Okay, like cloning. You clone a plant. The asexual reproduction is usually by plants, mostly by plants. Okay, this one is like cloning, cloning a part of a plant, and mutation and so on and so forth. So as I said, these are the two methods of reproduction by which organisms of the same kind will be brought back to life. Okay. Now the third one is sensitivity. Sensitivity is just the ability to detect stimuli in both your internal and external environment. The ability to detect a stimuli, to sense it, to feel it, to respond to it, to notice it, to know, to bring to your notice, to envisage it, to encompass it, to, ability to sense it, ability to respond to it, ability to detect a stimuli, okay, in your environment. When we say environment, you have internal environment and external environment. So stimuli within your external and your internal environment, the ability to respond is called sensitivity. For example, you see, we just said a plant grows towards the sunlight. That's sensitivity. Plant is able to sense the presence of the sunlight and is able to grow towards it. The roots of the plant is able to sense the presence of water and grow towards it. Okay, so these are sensitivity in context. Okay, so sensitivity is the appropriate ability of organism, not only plant, even human being. For example, you can sense danger and you run away from it. You can sense a danger, you run away. Animals sense danger in the bush and they run away from danger. Okay, they survive by using this high level of sensitivity. Being able to, we're not talking about the human feeling, how sensitive you are to your data. No, that's not what we're saying. We're talking about the response to your environment. The response for hunger. When you're hungry, you feel it. You respond by making something to eat, right? So the response of organisms, or the ability of organisms to detect any stimuli. You know what is a stimuli? Something that can cause a change to you, either positive or negative. Okay, ability to detect any stimuli. It's called sensitivity. Okay. Then number three. The third one, so we've responded, no, the fourth one. Number two is reproduction, we've treated that. Number three, we've talked about sensitivity, ability to detect external stimuli, and external and internal stimuli to our environment, to respond to it. Number four is growth. Growth is a permanent increase in size and in dry mass. Not just size and mass. Okay? In the increase, the permanent increase. Because when you grow, for example, if you are so centimeter in height, it's difficult you don't see anybody gets to a certain height and it starts to go down again in height. Okay, so growth is a permanent increase in size. When you're growing big, you're growing big. Plants is growing big, it's growing big. It's getting bigger and getting bigger. It's getting smaller, you get it bigger, you go to get bigger. So that's why we say permanent increase in your size and in your dry mass. Okay, so when you increase in size, cell, like you see cell, they increase by what we call cell division. They multiply, so they get bigger and bigger and bigger. So increase in your dry mass, increase in your size, they all together constitute what we call growth. So you get it bigger, you get it different from the way you look. That's the fifth one. So this is the fourth one, the growth. Now the fifth one, I told you this arrow can be interchangeably used. Here now we'll talk about respiration, the fifth one. If we've talked about respiration in the second one, we'll be talking about reproduction in the fifth one. So there are two arrows in Mrs. Grant. Okay, the fifth one is the respiration. Respiration is just a chemical reaction process in which the nutrients in our food is released. Okay, it's a chemical reaction. In respiration, oxygen that we breathe in, you know what it does? It goes into our body. You've ever wondered what is the oxygen for? Why do we need oxygen to survive? That oxygen was the main primary functions in the cells or in our arteries. When it goes into the lungs, and it's from there taken into the heart, and from the heart it goes into the veins and the arteries. It goes into the arteries and it flows around the whole body. Now what then does it do? What it does is that oxygen will react with the digested food. The digested food will react with oxygen to release energy. So you can see there's an equation for it. You can take a glucose equation. Okay, glucose is your carbohydrate food. Okay, C6H12O6. This glucose will react with oxygen to release energy. We react with oxygen that you breathe in that has gone into your system. We react with oxygen. The process is anything oxygen is born in combustion. We react with oxygen to release energy, to produce carbon dioxide. Okay, when oxygen flow in your body, what is returning back to your heart from the vein, from the rest of the body cells? What is returning back to your heart is carbon dioxide. You know that, right? So it will release energy. It will release carbon dioxide. It will release water. To also release water. The cells of your body needs this water. So the cells of your body will use this water. And there's something else, okay, which is called energy. Sometimes we write ATP, right? ATP. This ATP is an energy that is being released whenever oxygen reacts with the food we eat, the glucose. Okay, this is the energy, to release energy. This energy is needed by the body cells for your growth, for your nourishment, for your whatever it is, for your vitamins, for everything, for whatever the body needs. This energy is needed for your work, for your running about, for your activity, for you to be able to carry out your day activity. So this type of respiration is called aerobic respiration, because respiration is divided into two. Okay, it's divided into two. We have aerobic respiration, which we've written, aerobic respiration, the process whereby oxygen reacts with a chemical reaction whereby oxygen reacts with the food, the nutrient, to release energy. This is called aerobic respiration. The second type of respiration is called anaerobic respiration. This one, there is no need of oxygen. Okay, the food or the nutrient just break that into lactic acid. Okay, anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration. Okay, is the second type of respiration. So the whole process, why do the creator of living things, why did he create respiration process? The reason is that so that energy will be released for the body use, for growth, for nourishment, for metabolic activities to take place. You need energy in order to carry out all your metabolic activity, like your homeostasis, the check of body temperatures, and so on and so forth. Okay, you need energy. You need energy to be released for your digestion, excretion. When you go to urinate or poo-poo, you need energy. When you want to walk in the farm, you need energy. When you even drive your car, you need energy. Turn the steering and everything, you need energy. So all your metabolic activity, your sweating, you need energy. Okay, your exercise, you need energy. All your metabolic activity in your body needs energy. This energy is released from a process of respiration. Without respiration in your body, energy will not be able to be released. Energy will not be released. Is that okay? Energy will not be released. So respiration is the process whereby energy is be released. Energy is being released for our body use. Now the next one, number 6, I think we talked about number 5, right? We've talked about number 5. We talked about respiration. Now number 6 is excretion. Excretion. You know, people always think when we say excretion is to go out to the toilet and poo. Okay, when you say about excretion, people normally think, oh, it's to go to the toilet and poo. Not just so. Excretion has something to do with removal of any waste. Okay, removal from the body of organisms, the waste metabolic activities, the waste, okay, of all the metabolic activity like your urine, sweat, and so on and so forth. So when you get rid of sweat from your body, you are excreting. That's an excretion. That's excretion. Okay, the E comes from here. That's excretion. When you get rid of your body metabolic, is called excretion. Okay, it's EX, not just X. This E is standing for this. The removal of from organisms or the waste products of your metabolic activity. All the toxic material in your body after digestion, all the toxic ones that are not good has to be got rid of your body. Okay, and the substances in the excess of requirements. Any extra that we eat food a lot. So it's not all that the body needs. So you get rid of the one the body don't need that become toxic to the body is excretion. Now the last one in Mrs. Gray is called nutrition. Nutrition is taking in all of the materials for energy and for growth and for development. All the things that you need to take in for energy, for growth, and for well-being, for development, for your well-being. All these things like your vitamins, your proteins, your vitamins, okay, the things you eat, feeding. This is also called feeding in some contexts. Feeding, the food you eat to give you what the body needs for your well-being. Okay, many people don't eat vitamins a lot, and vitamins is very important for us. Vitamins are very important for us. Okay, you need calcium, you need iron, you need vitamin D, you need vitamin A. Vitamin A for your eyesight. You need vitamin A for proper eyesight. You need vitamin D for strong bones and teeth. You need vitamin C to prevent rickets and give your body nourishment. You need all the kinds of vitamins that you need. You need vitamin D and vitamin K to prevent high blood pressure and so on and so forth. So the body needs all of this. And there are minerals. Right? The minerals are very important to your bodies, like your magnesium. You need magnesium a lot. Okay, the body needs magnesium a lot. If you want to stay healthy, you need a lot of magnesium. You want your heart to be healthy, your arteries, your veins to be healthy, to do a lot of work. And your kidneys to be healthy. You need a lot of magnesium and you need a lot of potassium. You need calcium, but the calcium must not be out of proportion. Okay, you need iron. Okay, you need iron. Okay, for blood, for more production of blood. Okay, you need potassium, you need iron, you need calcium for bones and teeth. Calcium is for bones and teeth, but make sure your calcium is in good proportion with magnesium. Make sure your calcium is in good proportion with magnesium. So these are called minerals. Okay, these are called minerals. So minerals and vitamins, they go hand in hand. Minerals and vitamins, they go hand in hand. But the problem is that when we eat food, most of the food we eat, they are usually carbohydrate and fat. That's what we eat. Most of the food you eat, rice, mostly carbohydrate. You eat rice, virtually the food you eat is carbohydrate, which is not so good. We need proteins. We need proteins for growth. If you want to grow properly and grow tall and grow healthy and grow strong, you need a lot of protein food. you know, you've studied in science grade 9, where you get all these kinds of food, where you can get protein from. You've studied all of this, okay? Protein you get from meat, from cowpeas, from beans, okay? From chicken, from fish, from milk, from all of these things you can get protein from all of this. Is that okay? So now let's quickly take a look at, we have studied the characteristics of living things. We don't have to dwell on it again. And we say you can represent it, Mrs. Grain. There's a contention that we can put H, Mrs. H Grain. H is the homostasis, but homostasis still follows that sensitivity. So, and growth and development has been put to categorize or put together. Okay? So, but there's one I am introducing which is called death. All living things will die. So I think it's also a characteristic of living things which no textbook is actually RD. Death. Okay, you may say when things are living, they're not dead yet. But it's a characteristic that they will go through, they will fulfill. All of them will fulfill this. All living things, whether plants or animals, will eventually die. So I put it as also a characteristic of living things. All living things will die. Death is part of it. But the modern textbooks, they're not considering this much. They don't pay big attention. No one wants to talk about death. So we understand that. Okay, now anyway, so that's for the first part of the characteristics of living things. Right? The first part of the characteristics of living things. I think the next one, we look at the concept and uses of classification. Right? We look at concept and uses of classification. Now, before we go to classification, let's quickly look at this. We stop at this second part so that we not make it too long. Let's listen to this tutorial, and then we go on from here. Classification of living things.
This video is on the topic of classification. Classification is how biologists group organisms to determine things like their family groups and species, evolutionary relationships, and study their morphology and specific characteristics. Classification can be carried out on any living organism, from bacteria to plants to animals. Organisms are grouped using the sequence of classification shown here. You can remember the order by using a mnemonic such as King Philip came over for grand spaghetti. Carl Linnaeus is crowned the king of classification, and he came up with a naming system for new organisms called the binomial system. So let's take a look at that now. We'll start by reminding ourselves that a species is a group of organisms that reproduce to produce fertile offspring. The binomial system uses Latin words to give two names for a species. For example, we as humans are Homo sapiens, your pet cat is Felis catus, and a wild rose is Rosa ossicularis. This is an international system that is recognizable despite the language one speaks. The names are usually Latin names, although you are not expected to know the Latin names for any specific examples. The two parts in the binomial system are the genus and the species, and they are written in italics. You are not expected to remember any binomial names for specific organisms, but you do need to know which is the genus and which is the species, so let's look at a worked example now. The genus is the first part of the name and has a capital letter. The species is the second part and uses lowercase. Both should be italicized when written out. Here we can see an image of a mouse, and you are given the binomial name. You are asked to provide the genus of this animal. Using the binomial system, we know that the first part is the genus and the second the species, so the correct answer is mus. You will only be asked to identify the genus and/or the species name of organisms. You do not need to know any specific examples. Dichotomous keys are a tool used to identify organisms. You need to be able to construct and use one, as this often comes up in the exam papers, so let's do that now. Firstly, there are two types of dichotomous keys. One is a table form like this, and one is a bit like a family tree. You will most often be presented with an organism and need to use a key to identify it. So here we can see an image of an insect. You are given some information about the insect on the diagram and within the question stem. It is important to read and take note of all the information provided. You need to use the key to identify the order of this insect. You do not need to know about insect orders or genus or species to answer this question. You just need to be able to apply a dichotomous key to an example. You need to take each section of the key in turn. So looking at the image, can we see a hard wing case present? No, we cannot, so we go to number 2. Are the wings membranous or not? Yes, they are, so on to number 4. Does the insect have 1 or 2 pairs of wings? We can see 2 pairs of wings, so we move to question 5. Are the wings held out or folded at rest? Note, this is provided in the question stem. We can see they are held out, so the order is Odonata for 1 mark. In summary, classification systems exist to help us group organisms and look for evolutionary trends. A binomial naming system helps us to identify organisms. It uses the organism's genus and species names, which are italicized when written out. Dichotomous keys can be used to identify organisms based on their features. It is important to go through the keys step by step, using all the information provided in the question. Don't forget to check out all our other fantastic revision resources here at Save My Exams.
Okay, so here we've looked at a tutorial on classification of living things. Okay, living things are classified using the binomial system. Okay, so in this case we have identified the different kingdom. Okay, we've looked at how organisms can be classified, and we say a species is defined. First of all, you know there are millions and millions of species of organisms that are found in our planet, right? So what is a species? Species is the smallest name in the classification, in the binomial classification of living things. So there are several of them. Okay, we start from the kingdom, or most recently we use the word domain, but more specifically we start from the kingdom. So we're going to look at it, the Linus system of classification. So the first one, the topmost, is called the kingdom. This is where the human being belongs. This is where the animals belong, and so on and so forth. Then the next one is phylum, or phyla for plural. Phylum is singular. This is the chordata. And then we have the third one is class. This is where you have the mammalian groups. And then the fourth one is the order. After class is order. Order where you have the primate. You know, you have primates, animals that can walk upright. You have the primates, fall under the order. Then you have family. After primate, we have family. We have the hominidae. Okay, other family. We have the genus, which is like something like, I would say, son name, you know, something like family name. Okay, like we call it genus. And it usually starts with a capital letter. And it's always the first of the two binomial names that they will give you. In the exam, this is only what they normally ask. They will give a name, a botanical name, what we call the botanical name, because we call this a botanical classification of organisms. They will give you 2 names, maybe of a cat. They will say maybe musculus. And the first name, we start with a capital letter, is the genus, and the second name with a small letter is the species. For example, if we write Homo sapiens, human beings are called Homo sapiens. Okay, the Homo is the genus, belongs to the genus. The Homo is the genus, and the sapien is the species. Okay, so you must know these several, starting from the top to the bottom. And in the exam, normally they ask questions from the genus and the species. They just give you a name, 2 names. In binomial classification, we always write 2 names. We always write what? 2 names. And these 2 names The first one is the genus, and the last one is the species. Always take a note. And this first one starts with a capital letter. The genus starts with a capital letter, and the species starts with a small letter. Okay, so any organism will give you a name of that has two names in the binomial classification. We will normally recognize the first one with a capital letter as the genus, and the last one as the species. Is that okay? So this is called the binomial classification of living organisms. We need to know them: the order, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and sapiens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7. You need to know. Okay. This is general. This is specific. You go smaller as you go down the group. Okay. So that's that. Now we have what we call the dichotomous tree. Dichotomous tree is used, a key is used to identify organisms based on the description that has been given to you. So we have two types of dichotomous tree. One key, one looks like a tree, and the other one just looks like a table. There are two types. It's used, you see this one looks like a table. You're going to use it at the end to tell which organism or to describe an organism. This dichotomous tree is used to describe an organism. Now let's go through these two characteristics. The dichotomous key. Okay, they're used to identify or classify any living organism. Let's see the first one. The diagram shows a leaf. They give you a leaf. Now they want to describe it, and you will be moving based on the description they gave you. Use the key to identify the leaf, to identify which leaf this is. Leaf with several small leaflets. Go to 2. Does it have several leaflets? Leaf with one large leaf blade. Go to 3. So we will go to 3. So you just move to 3. Okay, if you say is a leaf with one large leaf blade, you go to 3, meaning you jump to number 2, you go to number 3. These are just description to tell you the directions, like it's telling you direction to go. Now in 3, leaf with a smooth edge. Does it have smooth edge? Look at the edges. Is it smooth? No, the edges are not smooth. Then you say leaf with a tooth edge. Yes, it's tooth, like a motor saw for cutting down wood. Tooth edge. So the answer is D. So this is how they bring this type of question in the exam. So the answer is not A, it's not B, it's not C. The answer is D. So you shade D in the exam. So this is a multiple choice question, the way it will come in biology. Is that okay? Okay. Now let's take a look at another way, because we are trying to make the class to be exam specific, not to like textbook specific. Okay. We try as much as possible to make it exam specific, not just textbook specific. Now let's take a look at the second example. Say 5 species of mollusks. Okay, we have 5 species of mollusks. We have A, we have B, these are snails, right? Snails. We have C, we have D, we have E. Now it says use the key to identify each species. Write the letter of each species A to E in the correct box beside the key. Now you say body is completely or partially covered in a shell. Which one is the body? Go to 2. You say body is completely or partially covered in a shell. Go to 2. Completely or partially covered in a shell. B and C, right? Does D have a shell? Is this a shell? Okay. So we have B. So it's a go to 2. Now, if that is true, the ones that bodies are completely covered in a shell, we go to 2. So we come to 2. Shell is attached to rocks by thin thread, or shell is not attached to rocks by thin threads. Let's see. Is it attached to rock by thin thread? Which option are we taking? By thin thread. Then is Mytulus edulis, right? So this one is A is attached to rock by thin thread, right? This shell is attached to a rock. Can you see a rock? by thin thread. So the name of A is what? The name has been given to you. The name of A is what? Mytilus edulus. That's A. So this is A. So we can write A if possible here. Okay, here is A. Mytilus edulus. What of this one? You say body is not completely or partially covered in a shell. It's not, that's E, right? So E's name has also been identified. Limax flavus. Because the body is not completely or partially covered in a shell. Is the only diagram whose body is not completely in a shell, either partially or completely. So the name of this E has been identified as Limax flavus. You see how you use this to name organisms or classify organisms? Okay, it says shell is not attached to rock by thin thread. Go to 3. If it's not attached to rock by thin thread, we go to 3. Now we go to 3. 3. Shell is a spire that comes to a point. Which one? A spire that comes to a point. B, right? So what's the name of B or C? C. A spiral. You know spiral is C. Yeah. Is C. C is a spiral. Shell is a spire that comes to a point. That name of C is Buccinum undatum. So the name of C is Buccinum. These are exam questions. This is how the questions will come in the exam. It's up to you to be able to identify the names. Okay, now 3B, shell is not a spire that comes to a point. You go to 4. You go to 4. So if it's not, go to 4. Now, in 4, animal has tentacles. Which animal has tentacles? Is it D? Yeah, D, right? So the name of D is Nautilus pompilus. That's D. Then animal has 2 tentacles. Animal has 2 tentacles. Is it B? Okay, so B, the name of B is Planobis planobis. So this is how we use the dichotomy classification to identify organisms. In some cases, they use yes and no. They give you a name, they say if it's this, yes, is this. If it's no, move to so number. So in the exam, expect a question from Homo sapiens, like a question, they'll give you a botanical name. They'll give you a botanical like Mus mululus or whatever it is. They ask you which one is the genus and which one is the species. A question like that is in the biology exam. Then a question on classification by movement like this using the dichotomy key, it's also very visible in the exam. So that's what you have in the exam. Let's see if we have the next one visible for us to look at, or else we close. So before we go to the evolutions, okay, this one has something to do with DNA. We just look at this one very briefly. Evolutionary relationship, how things have evolved, and then we move to the next one. Okay, quickly, let's take a look at this tutorial.
This video is on the topic of evolutionary relationships and is intended for students studying the extended syllabus only. Classification systems aim to reflect evolutionary relationships between species. An evolutionary relationship is one where organisms are related through the process of evolution, such as these present-day species of bear, which are all descended from one ancestor. In studying the evolutionary history of an organism, we can see recent ancestors. Here we can see that this point in the evolutionary tree represents a common ancestor of all bear species far back in history. And here we can see the most common recent ancestor of these 7 bear species. So a recent ancestor is the most recent organism from which a group of species is descended. Traditional classification, which relies on the study of morphology and physical features, has its limitations. Modern-day methods make use of the study of DNA to determine evolutionary relationships. The sequence of bases in DNA are used as a means of classification. By studying the base sequences of an organism's DNA, we now understand that groups of organisms which share a more recent ancestor have base sequences that are more similar than those that share only a distant ancestor. This means that they are more closely related. Do note that you do not need to know any specific examples of species that show close ancestry by base sequence. Here we can see an exam-style question asking you to describe evidence that may be used to show how closely related organisms are. Describe questions do not require you to give any explanation. This question is out of 3 marks, so we can assume we need 3 pieces of evidence. Firstly, we can say that traditional classification data can be used, such as morphology or observation of visible features. The study of internal structures of cells could also be used. We could look at whether or not organisms can breed together to produce fertile offspring, as this will indicate whether 2 organisms are the same species. We can add that DNA base sequences are another form of evidence. And finally, we could also use fossil records as a form of evidence to include extinct organisms. In this exam-style question, you are given an image of an organism called an echidna and provided with some facts about this animal, including that it has a bird-like beak, it lays eggs, and it has a pouch. It also has fur on its body and produces milk for its young. You are asked to suggest why traditional classification methods may make the echidna difficult to classify. Suggest questions mean that you do need to apply your knowledge to a new situation. The knowledge you require is that of classification methods. You are not required to know anything about echidnas. Secondly, you need to explain which classification approach will provide an accurate classification. We can see this question is worth 4 marks. Since we have both a suggest and explain question, we can assume that there are 2 marks available for each part. Let's take part A. It is tempting to start your answer with traditional classification methods make it difficult to classify this animal because, but this is a waste of your exam time and energy. You can just start with the key answer. They only use morphology or visible features. You need to add to your answer here to gain 2 marks, so you could explain that echidnas share many of their features with a range of vertebrates. Looking at these features alone would make it difficult to know whether to classify them as a bird or mammal or even reptile. And for interest, echidnas are actually a rare group of mammals along with the platypus. For part B, we are explaining which approach would give a more accurate classification. You need to start by stating that DNA base sequences would be more accurate, and then explain this by using a because sentence, which is that DNA base sequences would be more similar in closely related species. You could therefore determine which other species echidna are aligned more closely with. So in summary, classification methods should aim to reflect the evolutionary relationships between organisms. Traditional classification methods are limited, and so DNA base sequences can be used to give accurate classification of organisms. The more similar DNA base sequence is, the more closely related the organisms are. Don't forget to check out all our other fantastic revision resources here at Save My Exam.
Okay, so here what we have, it's how we can identify organisms based on the features, based on evolution, based on history. One of it is the traditional fictions. We have the traditional features and or the traditional morphology method of identifying, just looking at the features and looking at the hierarchy of where it's coming from. You'll be able to tell what it is, where it's from, and that's the traditional fiction. And the second most reliable method of classifying organisms from history is the DNA-based sequence. The DNA-based sequence is able to tell you which other organisms are closely related to their particular organisms and where it is be. And there's also another one they call the fuzzy fuel, the fuzzy fuel history. To find for that one is used for organisms that have gone on extinct. Organisms that have gone on extinct. you use the fuzzy method, classification method to identify such organisms, okay? Or you use what we call the carbon dating method, okay? The one archaeologists normally use to identify 1400 years, 2000 years, and so on and so forth, 2000 years, and so on and so forth, how many years ago a particular species lived in a particular place. Okay, so, but the most advanced one for us to take very big cognizance of is the DNA-based sequence method. Okay, this is highly used in biochemistry. The DNA-based sequence method is able to tell us to identify any organisms and the hierarchical evolutionary sequence or evolutionary relationship it had over the years. But the morphology system or the traditional feature sequence are usually like more or less a guesswork that does not tally in totality with the subject at hand. So that's all for this particular aspect. Then we quickly revise the next one because we want to round up this chapter. We know we are done with this chapter, and then we're looking at the features of livities now. Now we want to look at the features of livity. We go to the kingdom. We started with the kingdom, and we say we have 5 kingdoms. We're going to look at the 5 kingdoms. Here we study the plants, the animals, the fungi, the protists, and the prokaryotes. There are 5 kingdoms of organisms. So we're going to look at that. The first one is the plant. The second one is the animal. Here in the animal, but I don't think we can finish this aspect. Maybe this may be our part 2, because this is a lot. Not just because here, these 5 kingdoms, we're going to study each of the kingdom, each of the organisms in the kingdom, or each of the branch of the kingdom. The animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungi kingdom, the protistic kingdom, the prokaryote kingdom. So these 5 we have to extensively study, okay, where the virus belong, where the bacteria belong, and so on and so forth. We're going to study each of these one, their characteristics. When you take the animal, you look at the characteristics of cells, of plants, and so on and so forth. So let's quickly overview this. Let's see if we can finish the whole of chapter 1. That would be a very good one to start with, okay? Quickly, let's take a look at this one.
This video is on the features of living organisms. Organisms' features can be used to place them into appropriate kingdoms. There are 5 main kingdoms, which include animals, plants, fungi, prokaryotes, and protoctists, also known as protists. The main features used to place animals and plants into the appropriate kingdoms are features like whether they are multicellular or unicellular, whether they produce their own food via photosynthesis, or whether they contain a nucleus in their cells. It is a good idea to ensure you know a few different examples of features for each kingdom. Extended students, you also need to be able to name the main features used to place all organisms into each of the 5 kingdoms. Within the animal kingdom, there are many groups, but you need to know specifically about the main groups of vertebrates, such as reptiles, fish, amphibians, birds, and mammals, as well as the main groups of arthropods, which are a type of invertebrate. So we have arachnids, crustaceans, insects, and myriapods. Spend some time ensuring you know the features of each of these different groups and how to classify them. We will look at some worked examples now. Here we can see an image of a frog and their eggs. You are told that frogs are vertebrates. Using evidence from the question, you must classify the frogs into the correct group of vertebrates to which they belong. And then you need to describe the evidence that led you to this group. Make sure you use all the information provided, both from the text and the image.
Okay, I think, this aspect we do it in another class. Let's stop our class for today for this one.
Okay.
Yeah, because this one is deep, and we will go into it. For example, if you take animal, we're going to look at vertebrate and invertebrate. And invertebrate, we're going to measure all the mammals, the fishes, the amphibians, the birds. There are about 5 or so. Then you come to invertebrate, arthropod, you do the crustacea, the ananas, the mollusks, and all of this. So we go to, it's a bit deep, so I think it has to take its own class. So let's say class 2, we do that revision because it's very, I want a big graph of this, okay?